In every major key, there's a primary dominant seventh chord that's built from the fifth degree of the major scale, which is called the 5/7 chord. All the other chords in the key are either major or minor, along with the minor 7 flat 5 from the seventh degree. Today I'm going to explain how non-diatonic dominant seventh chords function when resolving to the diatonic chords of the key. Get your notebook out because you're going to need to take notes. Stay with me. Okay, so secondary dominant chords are actually non-diatonic dominant seventh chords where the root has to be diatonic to the key and then resolves either up a perfect fourth or down a perfect fifth to another diatonic chord other than the one chord of the key. Now, when used, the secondary dominant chords gives the illusion of resolving to a secondary key without actually modulating to a different key. So this is why they're called secondary dominants. Okay, so here's a list of dominant seventh chords that would be considered secondary dominants in the key of C major. A7 would be the 5/7 of 2 minor 7. B7 would be the 5/7 of 3 minor 7. C7 would be the 5/7 of 4 major 7. D7 would be the 5/7 of 5/7. And E7 would be the 5/7 of 6 minor 7. So if we take a look at this chart, on the left-hand side, we've got the diatonic chords, and on the right-hand side, we've got the secondary dominants. So the first one is 2 minor 7. In the key of C, that would be D minor 7. The secondary dominant is 5/7 of 2 minor 7, which would equal A7. The second one is 3 minor 7. And in the key of C, that's E minor 7. The secondary dominant is 5/7 of 3 minor 7, which would equal B7. The third one is 4 major 7. In the key of C, that's F major 7. The secondary dominant is 5/7 of 4 major 7, which would equal C7. The fourth one is 5/7. And in the key of C, that's G7. The secondary dominant is 5/7 of 5/7, which would equal D7. The fifth one is 6 minor 7, which would be A minor 7 in the key of C. The secondary dominant is 5/7 of 6 minor 7, which would equal E7. Now the seventh degree chord, the B minor 7 flat 5, doesn't have a secondary dominant chord because a fifth above B is F sharp, and F sharp isn't diatonic to the key of C. So just to reiterate, the root of the secondary dominant chord has to be diatonic to the key. G7 is not considered a secondary dominant because, as I said earlier, it's already functioning as the 5/7 chord of the key, providing us with the strongest resolution to the 1 chord. So with that in mind, there's only 5 secondary dominant chords in any major key. The following exercise is a great way to develop the ability to hear secondary dominant chords resolving to the diatonic chords of a major key area and really get a feel for the sound of a major key. Check it out. Okay, so let's go ahead and break this exercise down. Now, for the purpose of analysis, what I want to do is split this exercise into 2 different halves. The lower structure making up the diatonic chords of the key, and the upper structure isolating each one of the secondary dominant shapes that are approaching each one of these diatonic chords. So what happens here if I just start off with the diatonic chords? I've got C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, and A minor 7. And then I can play them back down. Now I can also refer to these as the Roman numerals, and this is a good drill as well, where I play them and then say the Roman numerals out loud. So I go 1 major 7, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 7, 6 minor 7. So that's a really good drill, along with saying the actual chord names: C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G 7, A minor 7. That's really good because it starts to get this under your fingers and you really know what the content is that you're playing, and you're not just sort of, falling back on some sort of a finger pattern. Now, that's the lower structure of the chords of the exercise. The upper structure is all the dominant seventh chords, which are acting as secondary dominants outside of the key because they contain chromatic notes that aren't in the key, and they're resolving to each one of these 5 different chords that we've got here. So the first one is going to be A7. That's approaching the D minor 7. The second one's going to be the B7, which is approaching the E minor 7. The third one's going to be the C7, which is going to be approaching the F major 7. The next one's going to be the D7, which is going to be approaching the G7. And then the next one is going to be the E7, which is going to be approaching the A minor 7. So here we've got the A7, B7, C7, D7, E7, or the 5-7 of 2, the 5-7 of 3, the 5-7 of 4, the 5-7 of 5, and the 5-7 of 6. Now, what's really important here is to understand where the half steps are, or really the complete intervallic structure of the scale. Notice that in this exercise, we don't use the secondary dominant into the 7, so it only goes up to the 6 chord. So what we have here when we look at the intervallic relationship between the scale, between the C and the D is a whole step. Then between the D and the E is a whole step. The E to the F is a half step. The F and the G is a whole step. And the G to the A is a whole step. Now this is equally important when you're starting on the roots of the secondary dominants. So I've got a whole step going from the A to the B7. Then for the B7 to the C7 is my half step, and that's the real important one to note. The C7 to the D7 is a whole step, and then the D7 to the E7 is a whole step. So this is important when putting this together, because what tends to happen is people get tripped up and they don't really know where they are once they start adding in that dominant 7th chord on the top of the original pattern. So when we put it together, it's going to be like this. Now, what's really important with that is where those half steps were, because if I'm not clear on what the chords are and what is actually under my fingers, what chord shapes I'm actually playing between both of those, I can easily get confused and lose it. So you really need to follow that intervallic structure so you have that together. So again, when I'm going C major 7, A7, D minor 7, B7, right here, E minor 7 to the C7 to the F major 7. Notice that's where those half steps occur, And that's what's going to make it hard to kind of internalize initially. But you need to break it down, do both parts of the drill, and then put it together. Now, I've got all this information in my book, Functional Harmonic Concepts. If you want to grab a copy, just click over here and get that. But also, I go into an in-depth breakdown of all this harmonic stuff in my 2-year bass mastery course. And I really, really recommend this course to you. Not only is it filled with all this harmonic knowledge, but also a bunch of other stuff in relation to playing over chord changes, understanding chord tones, understanding chromatic approach notes, scale passing tones, diatonic approach notes, triad pairs, the list goes on. You can see all the details on my website if you just click here. That'll take you to the place where you can find out about that course. So when we put it together, let's just do a whole run through where I do it super slow. Okay, now you go practice. So all in all, secondary dominant chords create more tension and release in a harmonic progression because it shifts the focus away from the tonic key to a secondary, more implied key, and then quickly progresses back to the original key. The dominant chords that point to the secondary implied keys contain notes that are non-diatonic or chromatic. This is what creates the desired feeling of tension and release. So with that said, what I want you to do, along with learning that exercise that I just laid out for you, is to write out all the secondary dominant chords in every major key. Make sure that you actually write this out with a pencil or a pen, as this works to ingrain the information into your subconscious on a much deeper level. The same benefits are not gained through typing on a computer. Until next time, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.